Hello and welcome to my crafty update. This is a little bit of a chatty video where I'll be talking to you about all of the arts and crafts bits and pieces that I've been up to over the last 2 weeks, and I'll be sharing any tips that I've picked up along the way as well. As usual, you can use the timestamps or chapters in the video description to just jump around to the part of the video that you'd like to watch, and the theme of this week's video is practice, practice, practice. So some of you may already know that I started drawing again about 5 months ago. And so this week has mostly been about art, but there has been a little bit of craft as well. This week I'll start with my regular sketchbook, as clearly that's where I need the most practice. Last time I said that I needed to put a little bit more effort into my sketchbook, because quite frankly I was starting to lose all motivation. And I have tried with several different mediums throughout the sketchbook over the last few months, and even though I haven't drawn every single day, I have tried to do about 3 or 4 drawings a week. The reason I've been struggling so much with my sketchbook is these blimmin' awful art prompts. They've gone. I've scrubbed them out. They are no more. I don't have to follow those rules anymore. Yay! Oh my goodness me, I cannot even tell you how liberating that is. The art prompts were great at the beginning of my art journey when I had no clue what to do, where to start. But as I've progressed over the last few months, I've wanted to experiment more with different mediums, and I've wanted to learn more and use those tips and tricks in my art. The flip side is that I wanted to stick with it. I didn't want to give up on these art prompts. So for the last 6 weeks or so, I have been plodding forward and struggling to get anything down on the page, and I've been feeling really stifled by it all. But no more! Yay! No more! They're gone! Yay! Anyway, I've been wanting to explore a little bit more with my watercolour paints. I think I've already mentioned that I had a set of watercolour paints about 30 years ago. Am I showing my age again? Yes, that's fine. I'm not a spring chicken anymore. Anyway, I wanted to learn how to use watercolour paints. I want to learn how to use watercolour paints. And I've really enjoyed watching several urban sketching videos on YouTube, and I love the style. I love the way that you can just put a sketch down on the page and then bring it to life with just a wash of colour. Love that. So my first freedom page in my sketchbook was just that. It's not great, but it was freedom. After doing this one, I decided the best thing I could do is to try following a YouTube tutorial just to help me learn how best to build the picture and how best to apply the colour. Because let's be honest, I am lacking a basic understanding of using watercolour paints. So I found this tutorial by Frederick. I will put the link in the video description for anyone that would like to go and have a look or would like to have a go. I did deviate from the tutorial a little bit because the picture he drew was landscape, and because I want to keep this book portrait. I also didn't have all of the right colours that he used, so I had to kind of improvise there a little bit. But the bottom line is that I was quite pleased with this. It's not perfect, but it's a definite improvement than the one I just did. So what I learned from this was doing a tutorial helped me get a better understanding of colour on the page. So I thought I'd have a go at making my own up. They're pretty awful, really. They're colourful, very simplistic. They're not great, are they? So then I thought, okay, find a picture you can draw in the urban sketching style again. It's fine, it's a sketch, it's not great. So I decided to watch another tutorial, and as you can already see, it didn't go very well. I realised I had no control over my washes whatsoever, and I thought just watching them paint and me just putting a bit of paint on would be perfect, but no, it wasn't. So I decided at this stage to try again with exactly the same picture. So I did. I tried again and again. So doing these next two, I felt I was having a little bit more control over the paint, but I didn't feel I was properly in control of the paint. So I knew I needed to practice some more. So I practiced again and again. Now on these two, I did feel as though the washes were progressing. I felt quite happy with these washes. I've realised that using a number 8 watercolour brush is a real game changer. It really holds the pigment and the water, and you have to kind of learn to control the brush so that the water and the pigment doesn't control you. I think that's probably the best way of putting it. Being quite deliberate with your strokes and less haphazard, should we say. But yes, using a number 8 watercolour brush for the washes, brilliant. It's a game changer. So I was quite happy with the washes on these pages, so ignore the trees in the foreground because quite clearly that's something for me to work on over the next few weeks, and I will. But as for the washes in the background and the mountains, the sky and the sea and the mountains, I was very, very happy with how they went on this paper. Now this paper is not proper watercolour paper, it's just 160 GSM cartridge paper. At this point I thought to myself, okay, we've kind of mastered the art of putting a wash on the page, let's try it on some proper watercolour paper. Now I've got these postcard sheets of watercolour paper which are fantastic for me as a beginner because I don't feel like I'm wasting the watercolour paper. Because if you don't know, watercolour paper is incredibly expensive, so these are perfect for me just to learn. So I practiced with this one. I kept it very simple, I just kept it as the washes and the mountains, and I was feeling the difference of how it feels to put the paint and the water on proper watercolour paper, and it is different completely. Oh, and what I've also learned is that you need to leave things to dry. You need to make sure that the background is completely dry before you work on the next level. So in this instance I worked on the sky and then I worked on the mountains. You have to have a bit of patience with watercolour, and that's new to me when it comes to art. I'm used to sitting down, allotting some time and getting it done. It doesn't happen with watercolour. You do a little bit, you put it to one side, you come back later. So I'm just going to deviate from my sketchbook for a little bit because at this point I decided to go back and try to recreate my very first watercolour painting that I did last month. It's still not perfect, but I do feel as though I had more control over the colour. I felt like I could bring out some vibrancy from the photograph that I was working from, which I didn't on my original watercolour painting. I felt like I had more control over my brush strokes, and I felt I was able to put more definition into the landscape. But I definitely have lots to learn, and I'm going to learn step by step. I'm not going to overwhelm my brain, I'm just going to ease myself into it, and every time I find a little problem, I'm going to go and try and work on it. So I have every intention to continue working on my watercolour techniques over the next few weeks, and I will come back and try and redo the Glastonbury Tor picture again, because that's going to be my marker of improvement as I go along. Anyway, back to my sketchbook. The next few pages aren't great, but they're expressing my freedom of not having any art prompts. Yay! So I thought I'd have a little go at doing something in the Chinese brush painting style. Didn't go terribly well, but that's fine. I had fun doing it. The next two, again, didn't go perfectly well, but haha, I put washes on these pages and they were okay. And I'm really happy that I've got the freedom to just do what I want in the sketchbook now. So yes, that's my regular sketchbook, and although there's nothing in it to write home about, I'm really pleased because I'm just so relaxed about this sketchbook now. Do let me know if you are a watercolourist and you have any top tips that you could share with me or with others, and in the meantime I'm going to keep trying. Right, my Neurographic Sketchbook. Oh my goodness me. So these first two were disaster. It's almost like I had a disastrous week, but it was incredibly freeing. I tried laying down washes on these pages. The one on the left here was done with watercolour paint. At this point, I hadn't really mastered the art of putting the washes on the page. And the colours are just so dull. Yeah, it's this paper, but I'll talk about that in a minute. And then on the right hand side, I did have fun with this though. I just dropped some ink on a wet page using my pipettes, and it was fun to do. And it was almost a very tie-dye effect. But the Neurographic Art didn't work over the top, really, did it? Then I went back to a more standardised style, and I started putting in some of these little ridges on this one, which is a style or a technique that I'd not used before. And this one I was using the gold ink, which incidentally in my sketchbook I do prefer using the gold marker pens. The gold ink is lovely, but you do need 2 coats, so I think I might save the gold ink for bigger pieces of artwork that I do, more refined pieces of artwork, and I'll just use the marker pen in my sketchbook from now on. Again, these next two, I was bringing in a little bit of the Zentangle lines into the work. The red one I think works fine, the black one I don't think works at all. These next two were quite busy with lots of different things going on, and I quite liked that actually, but I wasn't that keen on the watercolour paint that I used, the green Viridian colour. I didn't really enjoy that so much, but I did go to try and recreate this one on an A4 sheet of paper. That will be a full process video, which actually I've just posted it, so you should have already seen that already. And if you haven't, go back and take a look, because it's live. It went live Tuesday. These next two, a bit flat, a bit dull. I like the greens. I'm experimenting with green. I like the orange on a previous picture, but it wasn't working on this picture. I don't think I properly think about composition when I'm starting a piece of neurographic art. I am just generally putting squiggles on the paper, and then I might add something randomly to it. I think if it was deliberate, like when I'm recreating something for a full process video, that's less neurographic. But in the sketchbook, I'm not really thinking about what I'm doing until I'm doing it. But yeah, these were just dull. And these final two were a bit more interesting. I think they were quite complex. I don't know why, but they remind me of like the workings of an inside of a machine. I think it must be the ridges and the mesh. I'm not sure, but I quite like these. I like the style. Anyway, that is all I've done on my Neurographic Sketchbook this week. It's quite possible in the next 2 weeks I'll finish this book and I'll be ready to start another. We shall see. What else have I been working on? Well, I did try to make a start on using up this wicker hoop, but I decided that the leaves were not sturdy enough to use, so I'm going to put that wreath on the back burner for another week or two. So I've also been working on the Bouquet Toolkit for my roses and the wedding flowers. Next week, not this week, next week we'll test it out. I will be showing you how to make the house bouquet. Yeah, let's see if it works. I'm trying to pull it all together so it does work. So yeah, I've just been working on making the tutorial for the house bouquet. And oh yeah, so I had a special delivery a couple of weeks ago. Just after I'd published my last crafty update, I had a delivery, and I was super excited for this because I'd ordered some new mosaic tiles. I've made a couple of things now using mosaic tiles, and I quite like doing it. I want to do one using the tile cutters. So I found these online, and I decided to order a couple of muted colours and a mixed pack of bright colours. And what turned up were the two muted colours and a pack of blue. So I emailed the company immediately, didn't have a reply, and it was 2.5 working days later before I had a reply, and they just asked, even though I'd sent them a photograph of the invoice and a photograph of what I'd received, they just said, oh, so you've received a blue pack instead of a multicoloured pack. And I was about to reply, that's correct, but then I thought, if I say that's correct, then they might think that I've not got a problem. So I said, that's exactly what's happened. And I've heard nothing back. I haven't received a replacement, I haven't been asked to send this back. I don't know what to do now, other than shame them. Mosaic Heaven. You've not been heavenly. So I don't know if I am just going to have to sit on this pack for another couple of days, or whether I should just email them and barrage them. I don't know what to do. They could have just lost themselves a customer, and maybe they could have lost more if anyone's watching this. Who knows? Anyway, yes, I am very disappointed about not getting the right colours on my mosaic tiles, and if the right ones do turn up and if it is resolved, I'll let you know in my next crafty update. Oh my goodness, I was so excited about getting these mosaic tiles. These are such good quality tiles. They've got the ridges in the back, they're a lovely size, they're gorgeous colours. I just didn't get the colours that I wanted, and I'm so disappointed. but I will keep you posted as to what happens, and if the right ones do come up, then I will issue an apology. Well, actually, I'm not going to apologise but their customer service is lacking a bit. It has now been 10 days since I last heard from them, and I haven't received the goods. And I should just mention that the goods initially arrived within 2 days, so if they were going to send out a replacement, I would have thought it would have come by now. Okay, so the last crafty thing I've been getting up to this week was my Jane Austen figurine. Yeah, I have started to cover up all of the horrible, yucky Hobbycraft decoupage medium glue glossiness that is just all over it. This is why I decided to do the comparison between Modge Podge and the Hobbycraft decoupage medium, because it just wasn't working in the same way as the Modge Podge was for me on my models. So if ever you want to have a go at making these models, you need to use Modge Podge, not some cheap alternative. And yes, I will at some point in the future be putting up a tutorial on how to make these models. But yeah, Jane Austen, she's progressing. It will take me another week or so to, maybe another couple of weeks, to get all of the lines smoothed and straight and aligned properly over her body. And then once her lines are all done, we can move then on to working on her hair and her costume and her little book and finishing touches. I expect it will be another 4 to 6 weeks before she's finished, but I am making progress with her, even if it's slow progress. Right, well, that is pretty much it, I think. There's not much of a health update. I'm plodding forth. I'm feeling a bit rubbish for some days. I am feeling less foggy, but still quite tired physically. Stiff and uncomfortable, and yeah, just a bit rubbish really. But, it could be worse. I could be in pain. So, but hey ho, let's just keep taking the tablets and hope that I get well. So thank you for joining me this week again. I hope I haven't bored you all to tears. And if you've got any questions at all, if I've missed anything out, then do leave me a message in the comments below. And if you've made it this far, do give me a thumbs up, because that really cheers me up when I get the odd couple of likes on my videos. And yeah, let me know what you're working on. That would be really interesting. Over the next 2 weeks, I will be working on my watercolour techniques, and I hope to see you all again in a couple of weeks' time. Until then, stay crafty.